How does a single political figure rise from state governor to become one of the most powerful political kingmakers in Africa's largest democracy? How does one network of political allies, businesses, and institutions grow powerful enough to influence media, markets, infrastructure, and national politics in a country of more than 200 million people? Supporters call him a political mastermind, the architect who helped transform Lagos into Nigeria's economic powerhouse. Critics argue his rise represents something far more troubling.
Mr. President, Bola Tinubu,
the dangerous concentration of power around a single political network. His name is Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
The value of life, human life, is greater than that of a cow.
And to understand how his influence grew from the streets of Lagos to the presidency of Nigeria, we have to begin on a night when the country seemed to stop breathing. Lagos, October 20th, 2020, 10:45 p.m. The air smells like tear gas and burning tires. On the Lekki-Epe Expressway, thousands of young Nigerians' faces covered, phones raised, have been singing, dancing, and filming for days. They are the number NSAS generation. They are fed up. And in this moment, they are entirely unafraid. Then the lights go out. The CCTV cameras on the toll gate inexplicably, precisely go dark. And in that darkness, soldiers arrive. What happens next is live streamed to 150,000 people by a DJ named Obianuju Catherine Ode, known online as DJ Switch, who stands her ground, phone trembling, narrating a scene she cannot fully comprehend. Gunfire, screaming. The Nigerian flag, which protesters had held as a shield, crumpling to the ground. By morning, the toll gate looks like the aftermath of something that should never happen in a democracy. And within hours, miles away, the fires start. Television Continental, torched. The Nation newspaper, torched. Buildings that rioters knew with the quiet, certain knowledge of people who live inside a system belonged to one man. A man who had never held the presidency. Not yet. But a man who, for 2 decades, had held Lagos. His name is Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
And it's only when you open the door for conflict that political enemy will come in.
And this is the fury, the fire, the fleeing sun boarding a private jet at 1:53 a.m. This is only the middle of the story. To understand how one family came to own enough of Nigeria that protesters knew exactly what to burn, we have to go back to Chicago, back to the 1990s, back to a man with $1.4 million across 10 bank accounts, and a very complicated explanation for where it came from. You are watching from Origin Point TV. To understand the empire, you have to understand the territory. Lagos is not just a city. It is the commercial nervous system of Africa's most populous nation, 220 million people. The continent's largest economy by nominal GDP, a coastline that has swallowed and generated fortunes for centuries. Lagos moves money. Lagos makes people. Lagos, as Nigerians say with a mixture of pride and exhaustion, does not sleep. By the late 1990s, after 16 years of military dictatorship, Nigeria was tumbling back toward civilian democracy. The Fourth Republic began in 1999, fragile, hopeful, watched nervously by a population that had survived coups, assassinations, a devastating civil war, and an oil boom that enriched a tiny elite while leaving the majority in grinding poverty. Into this moment stepped a Lagos politician named Bola Tinubu.
I've spent over 4 years in exile campaigning for democracy.
And here is the first misconception we need to challenge. He was not a billionaire before he entered power. He became one after. Before 1999, Tinubu's biography was genuinely impressive in a modest, legitimate way. Born in Lagos in 1952, raised by his formidable foster mother, Abibatu Mogaji, the legendary market queen known as the Iyaloja of Lagos. Educated in Chicago, where he worked as a dishwasher, a night security guard, and a cab driver until he earned his business degree from Chicago State University. He became treasurer at Mobil Oil Nigeria, then a senator in 1992, then a pro-democracy activist during the brutal Abacha dictatorship, forced into exile, returning only when Abacha's sudden death in 1998.
And I've actively participated since my return. The local government election went well.
Opened the door back home. A man of the people, the story went. A man who understood struggle. What that story didn't fully reckon with, what it had no framework to explain, was the 1.4 million already sitting in his American bank accounts. In January 1992, an FBI agent named Kevin Moss, working with the IRS, was tracking a heroin trafficking ring operating out of Chicago. The ringleaders, Adegboyega Moise Akande and Abiodun Agbele, Nigerian nationals running a narcotics network with reach across the Atlantic. What Moss found, buried in the financial architecture of the operation, were 10 bank accounts at First Heritage Bank and Citibank. The accounts bore the name Bola Tinubu. The total, approximately $1.4 million. Moss called Lagos. Tinubu flew to Chicago. He met with the agent. He acknowledged that $80,000 used to open the Heritage Bank account had come directly from Akande. He then wired $100,000 to Akande's Houston account, a transaction that, in the eyes of federal investigators, looked less like innocence and more like cleanup. The Justice Department filed case number 93C4483 on the 26th of July 1993 before Judge John A. Nordberg in the Northern District of Illinois. The filing alleged that the accounts represented proceeds of narcotics trafficking. What happened next is important and often misrepresented. Tinubu was never charged with a crime. He was never prosecuted. The case was resolved through a civil forfeiture agreement, a legal mechanism that requires a lower standard of proof than criminal conviction. On the 4th of October 1993, Tinubu agreed to forfeit $460,000 from the Heritage Bank account. The remaining funds were released to family members. The case was dismissed with prejudice on the 21st of September 1993. Civil, not criminal. Settled, not convicted. Tinubu and his allies have consistently rejected any interpretation that implies criminal wrongdoing. They point out that no charges were ever filed and that the matter was resolved through a civil, not criminal process. Supporters argue that the controversy has often been amplified by political opponents as Tinubu's influence in Nigerian politics grew. To them, his story is less about scandal and more about resilience.
I get from Tinubu a lot.
He's a man of honor and he has done.
We are all supporting Bola Ahmed.
We are voting for the man because Tinubu is the man.
A politician who returned from exile after military rule and became one of the central figures in Nigeria's modern democratic politics. But here is what that distinction does not erase. A United States federal court found, in a signed legal order, that the money represented proceeds of narcotics trafficking, and that document, case number 93C4483, would follow Bola Tinubu for the next 30 years. They had no idea in that Chicago courtroom in 1993 that the man signing away $460,000 would one day control the budget of Africa's largest economy. Or perhaps, and this is the version that unsettles people more, some of them suspected exactly that. Because the CIA, the FBI, and the DEA have all invoked what is called a GLOMA response to Freedom of Information Act requests about Tinubu. That is the official government formula for we can neither confirm nor deny that we hold records about this person. It is language reserved for cases where even acknowledging the existence of a file could compromise national security or ongoing intelligence operations. In April 2025, U.S. federal judge Beryl Howell issued a landmark ruling. The public interest in knowing what the FBI and DEA knew about a sitting African president, she wrote, was undeniably significant. She ordered the files released. As of this writing, that legal battle continues. In the 27th of January 1999, Bola Tinubu is sworn in as governor of Lagos State. This is the pivot, not the presidency that comes later. This is the moment.
We have now therefore reshaped our focus and our apparatus to make it more efficient and at the same time protective of civil liberties.
Lagos generates more economic activity than most African nations. Its governor commands budgets, distributes contracts, controls land allocation, appoints judges, directs police, and crucially, oversees the collection of state taxes. In a country where the federal government controls oil revenue, a Lagos governor who can expand the state tax base is not merely a politician, he is an economic architect. Tinubu understood this at a level no predecessor had. Political analysts often describe Tinubu as one of the most influential political strategists in modern Nigerian history. Researchers studying Nigerian political networks argue that his real achievement was not simply winning elections, but building a durable political structure capable of shaping Lagos politics long after he left office.
Bola Tinubu is the best governor Nigeria has ever had. He's a very, very good manager of men and resources.
In Lagos, that structure combined party organization, economic influence, and carefully cultivated alliances that helped turn the state into the most powerful political base in the country. Within years of taking office, Lagos State entered into a revenue collection arrangement with a private consultancy firm, Alpha Beta Consulting LLP. The firm was tasked with assisting the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service. Its compensation, 8% of all tax revenue collected. 8% of everything. Who owned Alpha Beta? The company was never formally registered in Tinubu's name, but its original appointment occurred under his watch. Multiple insiders, political figures, and investigative reports across 2 decades have alleged his ownership or controlling interest. As recently as 2018, Alpha Beta's own managing director, a man named Dapo Apara, filed a petition with Nigeria's Anti-Corruption Commission, the EFCC, describing the firm as an avenue for official corruption, a conduit pipe for massive money laundering and tax evasion. The EFCC did not prosecute. By 2024, Alpha Beta was collecting 1.25 trillion in Lagos tax revenue annually, earning 213 billion in 2-year commissions, approximately 135 to 145 million US dollars. By 2025, its declared target was 2.8 trillion, but Alpha Beta was only part of the architecture. During the Tinubu governorship, a media empire crystallized: the Nation newspaper, Television Continental, Radio Continental. When journalist after journalist asked about ownership, Tinubu denied or deflected until the 25th of October 2020, the week after the Lekki shooting, when he finally admitted, "I am indeed a promoter and financial investor in the Nation and TVC."
I'm in Lagos. And I still hold the title of Asiwaju of Lagos. Oh my God. And I'm still a Jagaba.
Real estate accumulated, Oriental Hotel, Falomo Shopping Complex, land on Victoria Island, properties in Abuja, and at Budiyon Road in Ikoyi, the most expensive address in Nigeria, his personal residence, a compound whose estimated value runs into hundreds of millions of naira. The man whose declared income as a mobile oil treasurer was $2,500 US dollars a month had, within 8 years of political power, become one of the wealthiest men in Nigeria. He left the governorship in 2007. He never really left Lagos. Political scientists have a term for what Tinubu built: godfatherism. The practice of funding candidates, controlling party nominations, and placing loyalists in strategic positions in exchange for access, contracts, and protection. Nigeria has had political godfathers before. None had done it with quite this level of institutional architecture, and none had involved their families so comprehensively. Oluremi Tinubu, his wife, served 3 consecutive terms as senator for Lagos Central from 2011 to 2023.
What we're doing as a legislature. You don't come in here when we invite you despite your colleague.
While her husband dominated the executive branch and the party machinery, she occupied the legislature. The family thus held simultaneous influence over Lagos's governorship apparatus, the Nigerian Senate, and the APC party structure that would eventually carry him to the presidency. She is now First Lady of Nigeria. The joint bank account she held in the 1990s with Audrey Akande, wife of the Chicago drug kingpin, at the center of the 1,000 993 forfeiture case has never been publicly addressed. Oluwaseyi Tinubu. Seyi is the president's son, widely believed to be the biological child of Bunmi Oshonaike, whom Seyi publicly honored as his mother in 2019. He is the CEO and co-founder of Lotsad Promo Media, an outdoor advertising company that controls hundreds of billboard and LED screen locations across Nigeria. His estimated net worth 50 to 100 million US dollars. In 2024, the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, the OCCRP, and the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists revealed that Seyi held majority shares in an offshore company registered in the British Virgin Islands. His co-shareholder, Ronald Shaguri Jr., the Shaguri name requires explanation. Gilbert Shaguri is a Lebanese Nigerian billionaire and one of Bola Tinubu's closest associates. In 2000, a Swiss court convicted Shaguri of money laundering on behalf of the Abacha military regime, among the most corrupt governments in Nigerian history. His company, High Tech Construction, received the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway contract in 2024. The value of that contract, 11 to 13 billion US dollars. The tendering process, none. No public bidding, no competitive process. The largest single infrastructure contract in Nigerian history, awarded without a tender to the business partner of the president, whose son co-owns a British Virgin Islands offshore company with that partner's son. In January 2026, President Tinubu awarded Gilbert Shaguri Nigeria's second highest national honor. Then there is Folashade Tinubu Ojo, the president's daughter, and the Iyaloja General of Lagos State. She inherited the title her late grandmother Abibatu Mogaji once held. The Iyaloja mediates disputes, manages market levies, and positions representatives inside trading halls across Lagos. She controls the daily economic environment of millions of traders. Her husband, Oyetunde Ojo, was appointed by President Tinubu as the head of Nigeria's Federal Housing Authority in February 2024. And finally, Wale Tinubu the nephew, CEO of Owando PLC, Nigeria's largest indigenous oil and gas company.
Davos was always globally centered, and we always wanted more African focus.
Wale co-founded the firm in 1994, a genuine business achievement that predates his uncle's political rise. But after 2023, Owando's subsidiary OVH Energy took management of NNPC Retail, the distribution arm of Nigeria's state-owned oil company, in a deal that gave the president's nephew 49% control of fuel distribution, infrastructure across the entire country. President, First Lady, the son, the daughter, the son-in-law, the nephew, controlling the executive, the media, the markets, the oil supply chain, the housing authority, and the largest infrastructure contract in national history. Is this Nigeria, or is this House Tinubu? In the architecture of power, it is easy to lose the human beings. Let us find them. Segun Oluwasanmi worked for Alpha Beta Consulting, an ordinary employee who, over time, noticed something he couldn't ignore. His salary was being deliberately split into two separate payments to reduce the company's PAYE tax liability. The very taxes Alpha Beta was being paid billions to collect on behalf of Lagos State. He gathered evidence. He filed formal petitions with the EFCC, the ICPC, and the Lagos State Police. Nobody came. In December 2025, Oluwasanmi met with Alpha Beta's managing director. Police officers were present at that meeting. What followed felt like a warning. In January 2026, 8 of his colleagues were sacked. 9 more were suspended for suspected whistleblowing. In February 2026, Oluwasanmi and an associate were arraigned in a Lagos court. The charge: sharing Sahara Reporters articles on Facebook, articles describing the very allegations he had formerly filed with authorities. He was charged with conduct capable of provoking a breach of peace. His next court date is the 13th of May 2026. The company he accused continues to collect Lagos's taxes. Then there are the market traders, the millions of Lagosians whose daily working lives unfold under structures the Tinubu family has shaped for decades. The late Abibatu Mogaji was their original queen. Her granddaughter, Folashade, now holds that role. Critics allege, and some traders quietly confirm, that market loyalty has long functioned as electoral infrastructure. Traders mobilized at elections, market fees leveraged for political compliance. The economic precarity of small commerce quietly turned into political currency. These are not dramatic stories. They are the quiet ones, the ones that never make international headlines. The grinding, daily texture of life inside a system that has been optimized over 20 years for the benefit of one family. And then there was October 2020. The Number End SARS protest began as a campaign against police brutality, specifically against the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, known for extrajudicial killings, extortion, and the torture of young Nigerians. But they became something larger. They became a referendum on the entire political architecture that had produced the Nigeria these young people had inherited. When soldiers arrived at the Lekki toll gate on the night of October 20th, the protesters were singing the national anthem. They held Nigerian flags, they had lit candles, and when the smoke cleared, when DJ Switch's live stream cut out, and the world pieced together what had happened from dozens of phone videos and survivor testimony, the rage turned not toward the military barracks, but toward a specific address. The protesters didn't burn random buildings. They burned TVC. They burned the nation. They targeted properties that Lagos residents knew not from official records, since ownership was always carefully obscured, but from the lived intuitive knowledge of people who existed inside the system. Seyi Tinubu left Nigeria at 1:53 a.m. His father was not in Lagos. In the rubble of the burned buildings, something clarified. The Nigerian state had responded to peaceful protests with bullets. The man most associated with Lagos's political economy was watching his properties burn from a distance. And a generation of young Nigerians had decided permanently and irreversibly that they knew exactly who their city belonged to. Lagos voted against Tinubu in 2023. The very state he had governed for 8 years rejected him at the ballot box. On the 29th of May 2023, Bola Ahmed Tinubu was inaugurated as the 16th President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He had received 8.79 million votes, 36.6% of the vote in a three-way race. The lowest winning percentage in Nigerian presidential election history. Both Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi contested the result in court, citing the drug forfeiture case among multiple grounds. The Court of Appeal upheld Tinubu's victory. The Supreme Court confirmed it. He won. Constitutionally, lawfully, undeniably, he won. His first act as president removed the fuel subsidy that had kept petrol prices artificially low for decades. Within hours of his inauguration speech, prices at the pump more than tripled. Within months, inflation reached its highest level in nearly 3 decades. The naira collapsed. The cost of food, transport, and medicine, everything ordinary Nigerians depended on, spiraled out of reach. For decades, the subsidy had consumed billions of dollars annually and was widely criticized by economists as fiscally unsustainable. Reform advocates say ending it was a necessary, if painful, step towards stabilizing Nigeria's finances and redirecting resources toward long-term development. Critics called it something else entirely. The poor, they said, was subsidizing his inauguration with their dinners. Both may be true. That is the paradox of Tinubu, a figure simultaneously capable of genuine policy insight and whose governance architecture has directed enormous public wealth toward private hands connected to his own family. Meanwhile, Alpha Beta's contracts continue. The Shaguri Highway breaks ground. The FBI and DEA files remain locked in litigation. The whistleblower awaits trial. Wale Tinubu's OVH Energy manages NNPC Retail. Folashade controls Lagos markets. Seyi's billboards line the roads. And in Washington, D.C., a federal judge has ordered that the American people, and by extension, the Nigerian people, deserve to know what the United States government knows about its allies' past. That file, still sealed, still contested, sits somewhere in a government building, waiting. What the Tinubu empire describes is not uniquely Nigerian. It is a model refined in Lagos over 2 decades, now deployed at a national scale of how democratic systems can be hollowed from within without being formally dismantled. Elections still happen. Courts still sit. Press conferences still occur. The form of democracy persists. And yet, the tax collector is the governor's company. The oil distributor is the president's nephew's firm. The largest infrastructure contract in national history goes to the business partner's company without a public tender. The whistleblower is arraigned. The anti-corruption agencies are appointed by the very man they would need to investigate. Does that sound like ancient history? Or does it sound like a description of how power actually works, not just in Nigeria, but in the places we tend not to look at too closely? The story of the Tinubu political network raises a question that goes far beyond one man or one presidency. In every democracy, power accumulates somewhere through institutions, through money, through networks of loyalty and influence. Nigeria's experience forces a difficult question. When political systems grow around powerful individuals, can the institutions meant to hold them accountable remain truly independent? For supporters, Bola Ahmed Tinubu represents political mastery, a strategist who helped shape modern Nigerian politics from the ground up. For critics, his rise represents the dangers of power concentrating inside a single political dynasty. The truth, like most political stories of this size, may live somewhere in between. The Tinubu story is many things. It may be a story about the intersection of money and democracy, about how a single family can, over 2 decades, position itself across an entire national infrastructure, about what accountability means when the institutions of accountability answer to the subject of the accusation. And it is a story that is not finished, not by a long way. As for the nuance around the family's descendants, it is worth acknowledging. Most families connected to concentrated political power are not monolithic. Some members bear the name without bearing the decisions. Some have had no direct involvement in governance at all, but that complexity does not dissolve the core question. When enormous wealth flows from public institutions toward private hands, who is responsible for where it lands? History is not what happened. History is what we choose to examine and what we choose to look away from. If this video made you look closer, that is enough for now. The story is never as simple as it seems.